Welcome to the G3X Podcast, where it's godgymgrind unfiltered. This is episode 22 of the podcast. Our guest today is Anthony. I'm super excited to have him. Anthony, how are you today? Thank you so much for being here.
I'm doing good. I'm excited to share my story. Thank you for having me on, and let's go do it. Hope everybody enjoys this one.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. No, definitely. For those audience listening, Anthony, as always, I connected through him through Instagram and Threads, if I'm not mistaken, as well. And then from there, I started seeing his posts, his Instagram bio. It's like how he helps Latinos with their own like fitness journey, weight loss journey, and so forth. And myself, as a Hispanic myself, is like, hey, this would be an awesome thing because I know within us Latinos, Hispanics, there's we have a lot of good foods, let's say that, a lot of rich, good food. But at the same time, you have to be careful also of the foods because it could be sometimes, we could take it a little overboard. But I wanted to have him share his story. So Anthony, let me not steal your thunder. Give a little bit of a little introduction, like where you're from, what you do right now, and then we could proceed with the questions after, and we take it from there.
No problem. So, as everybody knows, my name is Anthony. I'm originally from New York City, now living and based in Orlando, Florida. Currently, what I do is I still do a 9 to 5, so I am an exercise physiologist, actually at Disney for everybody who loves Disney. So that, and then I started my online coaching business about 7 years ago. As soon as I got my nutrition degree, because I'm actually a certified nutritionist in Florida, and I decided to help people. In the last few months is when I decided to dig in a deeper niche and help out the Hispanic community because I dug more deep into who I am. If you would say dig deep and help, there's not a lot of people willing to help the Hispanics still use their culture. We're always hearing, give up our food, give up all this. It's hard as us Latinos to give up our food. That's who we are. That's how we're brought up to be raised. So I decided to dig a little deeper in that, and that's where I'm currently at.
Nice. That's so cool. That's actually funny. My sister is a huge Disney fan. We try to go almost like every year to the parks and everything. So that's super cool. I
Y-
like that.
Yes, yes, it's crazy to see it from aside from the work aspect of it. So we kind of a little thing just help people prevent injuries, basically. The ones who do the shows, people
Nice.
in costume, those sort of things.
That's cool. No, I love that. That's
Yeah.
super, super cool. I honestly thought you were still in New York City, actually. So that's cool that you're in Orlando. Nice. So if I'm ever by the area, because I think this week or next week I have something to do in Orlando, but I have to see what. So maybe we connect there or something. That'll be super
Oh,
cool.
for sure. Let me know. I'm down. Yes.
Definitely. For sure. No, but awesome. I love the whole backstory there, Anthony. And so getting a little bit deeper into it, I was reading the form also that you filled out and it got me intrigued there. So let's kind of like give a little before getting into the fitness stuff, kind of like a little more depth of your backstory, because I feel like there's a lot of like cool things that the people can find inspirational or like that you push through. Talk to me a little bit about like your upbringing when you were first back in New York City and that aspect there with, let's say, the environment, the people you grew up with, and let's just get a little bit into that part.
No problem. I'm honest. This is one that I don't talk about, that I don't share enough of, I guess, or give myself enough credit. So, all right. So, growing up in New York City, right? I grew up in the Bronx, actually, like 5 blocks from Yankee Stadium. Everybody knows where Yankee Stadium is at. So, I grew up all there, a single family home. My dad was never involved in my life. He left when I was about 2 years old, if I'm not mistaken. So I was raised just by my mom and grandma. So, like most of us, missing fathers, whatever. Never had an issue really growing up. I was good in school, straight A student, till I got to high school. Once I got to high school, things went pretty crazy. I started hanging out with the wrong crowd. I'd say it's more of a upbringing of always having to be the man of the house because that's how my mom kind of raised me. As soon as my dad left, and I was old enough to understand, she always was like, "Oh, you're the man of the house. You're the man of the house." That kind of thing. So, I actually played basketball, and I was actually pretty good. I actually had scholarship, Division 3 scholarship to play, and I ruined all that for hanging out with the gang life, the street life. So I started ditching school like crazy to the point where my mom came to school one time and the teacher asked her, "Who's this?" I don't even know who this guy is. Like, that's how bad it was. I would never show up to class. about when I turned 18 was when I finally realized like, oh man. So in New York City, you need 48 credits to graduate. They were like, you only got like 16. So I was still basically like 4 years behind at the age of 18. It was never that I wasn't smart, you know. When I went, I got good grades. When I didn't go, of course. So at that moment, I decided to get my GED because I was like, I'm not gonna be in class with 14-year-olds and I'm an 18-year-old. That's just how I felt. I was embarrassed. So I went and got my GED and I passed it on the first shot. And then after that, basically was when I decided it's time for a change because I was still doing the bad things. So I was hanging out with the wrong crowd. I knew I didn't want to go to college. I hated school. It's the reason I wasn't going to school. So at that time, my mom and my grandma were moving back to Puerto Rico. So at that time, I was like, I'm not moving to Puerto Rico. Why would I want to move to Puerto Rico? Yes, I'm Puerto Rican, but anybody who is not from Puerto Rico, it's hard to find a job there. So that all those things were going through my mind. I was like, I'm not going to school. Uh, I only really speak Spanish with my grandma. How am I going to adapt to speaking Spanish all the time? And then I was like, I'm not moving. So I decided to join the military. I didn't think about it, no nothing. I just went to a recruiter and I was like, I need to change my life. If I stay here, it's either I'm gonna end up dead or I'm gonna end up in jail. It was just the way I felt. I was, you know, for anybody who knows, yes, selling drugs, doing things you shouldn't be doing, guys, is not the way to go. So I just went into a recruiting office and I said, hey, let's go. And I was so desperate to leave that I did everything so fast. And they give you an option. What job do you want to do? Every job I chose, I couldn't do it because I decided to go to the Air Force because my mom wouldn't let me join the Marines. And she was like, "Oh, I'm not gonna let you go to war." Blah 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 blah. So we agreed on joining the Air Force. So the Air Force has this rule where if you don't have a high school diploma, no matter what you do, the person with the high school diploma gets ahead of you. So you take this ASVAB test to let you know your score. I scored 90 because, like I said, it wasn't that I wasn't dumb. I just didn't go to school. So I could have basically had any job I wanted if I would have had my high school diploma, but they couldn't because they would take the person with the high school diploma ahead of me, even if they scored lower. So at that point, I was like, I just gotta leave. I have to go, or more trouble will come. So we decided to do security forces because the Air Force calls it a fancy term, but it's infantry. And then I left in June 15th of 2009. That's when the journey started a better, Anthony, I would say.
Wow, no, that's a powerful story. And I like how you touched that because, we talk about it a lot and both. And I think we, especially, looking myself back in my, like, also college years or even before that, and, how they always say, like, hey, watch your circle. Who's like your circle, your close circle. And sometimes, we might take it for granted. But, hearing your story, I think that's like such an important aspect. Like, hey, you know, watch who are you surrounding yourself with now or before, etc. And then I would say, like, hey, are they getting you closer to where you want to go in life, whatever your goals, your ambitions are? Or is it more of maybe like a slight distraction to avoid something that you're trying to escape, but they're not really gonna help you get to where you want to go, right?
Correct. So going off what you said, crazy thing was I did my mental development after I got out the military, and that was one of the biggest things they said. Like, you become the five closest people you hang around consistently. Either, and you can keep whoever you want around, but you're either gonna, if they're below, like if they're doing bad things, you're either gonna go two routes. It's either to stay their friends, you're gonna bring yourself down to their level, or you're going to go at this high level and they're not going to come up to your level. So I was always informed to basically watch your circle and always stay around people that are just a little bit above you because that will push you to be better.
Yep,
Little thing I've
exactly.
taken.
No, and it's true, and it's true, and it's something like myself, let's say, that I've talked in about, like, let's say, connecting with that whole grind aspect of the podcast. Like myself, starting G3X Fitness, getting deeper into fitness, starting this business, starting the podcast, and etc. Certain people that I would like, when I was just, let's say, living life, for lack of a better way to describe it, just kind of like going with the flow of life, then you realize like, hey, certain people like, hey, you know what, like, yeah, maybe I've known this person for 10 plus years or however long you've known this for friend, etc. But like, hey, unfortunately now where I want to go, our paths are different. Nothing against those people, because hey, I've known them for a long time, they're cool. But like, if you are really wanting to achieve what you want to, where you want to go in life, sometimes you just have to maybe distance yourself, not cut them off or anything, but you have to distance yourself from certain people to be able to like ultimately go where you are. And there's no hard feelings, but well, hey, we all have to accomplish something. We all have our own goals and ambitions, and we have to walk towards them. And if that sometimes means that certain paths uncross, then hey, such is life, right?
And that goes, like you said, whether it's your friends, sometimes it's family. Unfortunately, sometimes it is, because sometimes your family can bring you down. For people who go through those situations, sometimes you have to make that tough decision of friends, family, whatever, if you truly want to get to where you want to get to.
Yep, 100%. Now, let me ask you the following then. Now, I love that story there, how, got into the military and everything, you like, in a sense, you found a way to like, let's say, turn your life around in a sense, right? Versus, other people could have just fallen deeper into it. And thank God, you were able to find, let's say, a way to get out of it and grind through it. So that's awesome. Now, I do remember in the forum how you mentioned toward, I believe around that time during the military, or like around after, there was like kind of like there with your mom's health, which kind of was, that also was a turning point in your life, which then what got you into nutrition. So talk to me a little bit about that aspect there.
All right. So I got out the military in 2015, not because I wanted to get out. I just felt like it was the the best thing, right? I miss it to this day. So, but I got out at that time. Of course, like anybody else, you don't have anything figured out. I was still 24. I joined the military in 19, so I was still pretty young. Um, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't like school, so I didn't even take advantage of school while I was in the military. Mistake number one. Everybody goes to the military, take advantage of school while you're in. But so I get out and I didn't know what to do. And then your life is completely different when you get out. You're back to civilian world. Yes, you're appreciated, like, oh, you're a veteran, all this, but you're back competing with everybody else. It's not like there's this crazy special treatment as everybody think there is. Like you're competing against the normal people again. Civilian world, you're back to being zero again. But at that time, I decided to move to Florida because there was nobody in New York. So that's how I came about how I ended up in Florida because as a little kid, we came to vacation here and I was like, one day I'm gonna live in Florida, and that was my perfect opportunity. The military pays for all your move, and I was like, hey, let's start a brand new start away from all that in New York. And then eventually, my mom and my grandmother moved back down here because they were tired of Puerto Rico. That's when we discovered, well, I discovered more that my mom had health issues of diabetes. So to rewind, she was pre-diabetic when she had my sister, and as most of us, we don't take it serious. Diabetes is a crazy killer in every community, but especially in the, Black community and Hispanic communities, the highest for us, right? As soon as we got here, so I got here around June, and July 4th, we spent it in the hospital because she got hospitalized because her blood sugar was at 700. Your blood sugar is supposed to be anywhere from 80 to 120, guys.
Wow.
Um, and this was years of going that she her body found that normal, so your body adapts to whatever you're going through. But I guess at that point it was like enough's enough. I can't be at 700, right? So she got hospitalized. That was the first time she got out, no problem. I would say, if I'm not mistaken, by October, November, second hospitalization for the same problem, right? Now it's even worse. She called ball palsy, which is for anybody who don't know, it's like your nerves get damaged, so your face turns to the side, kind of thing. It's like nerve damage, right? So now the diabetes is affecting everything. And of course, I sat there through the hospital, and all you hear is, "Hey, eat healthy," which we all hear. Even people in the fitness world, you hear "eat healthy." But what is eating healthy? It's easy to say eat healthy. What is it, right? Well, that's all the doctor said. Oh, you gotta eat healthy. You gotta eat. So at that point was when I finally made the decision. I have free schooling, right? So that they started off as just helping out my mom. So I'm like, I'm gonna go study nutrition, and try to help my mom. So I went and studied nutrition, and that's where I got my bachelor's. So all this journey really started was just helping my mother with diabetes. Look, now I never knew it would turn into such a big passion of helping everybody else. But that's the biggest turning point in my life, I would say. Even more than joining the military and changing my life is, we all want to make an impact in this world. I know we all do, even though some don't mention it, but we all do feel like that. And helping others is something that I can't even explain the feeling. It's just a rewarding feeling, I would say.
100%, and I think that's where all, like, let's say beautiful like projects or business or ventures always start, where it's like people want to like have some, like, see, they see some kind of problem or issue, or they want to help someone, and then it leads them to something else down the line, right? Like, how you probably didn't see yourself, starting your own online coaching in this, but hey, that, if it was just helping your mom and then it led to that. Like, there's a famous quote that I've said it multiple times in some past podcast episodes, and I think it's perfect within your story. How it was a quote from Steve Jobs, how he mentioned, "You can't connect the dots looking forward; you could only connect the dots looking back." And it's just him to say, like, we experience things in life that at that point in time we sometimes don't know why it happened, or we're just going through the motions, but then we look back at it X amount of time later, 6 months, a year, and like, oh wow, that led me to that, which led me to this. And I think, so many podcast episodes so far that I've recorded now, and hearing different people's story, it always, that phrase, that quote keeps proving itself true, because a lot of other guests just like yourself have mentioned how they started something, like maybe just wanting to help a family member or help someone they knew, etc., which but then led them to like develop this new passion that they didn't know they had. And I think that's just always beautiful, right? Where it starts with something you just wanting to help out or make a, do something different, and then it leads to something greater, which I think is, I don't know, I just find it super nice, super cool.
It is. Like I said, I love hearing we all have a story, and I love hearing other stories because we all got different upbringings, even different experiences, right? And hearing others overcoming things is an amazing story. Like I think us as humans don't give enough credit to ourselves. We're always trying to compare ourselves to somebody else, and you don't really look at your own story to see what you have accomplished. We always look at things from a, I wouldn't say negative side, but we sort of do, like, oh man, why my life is this? Why it's so hard? Why it's so this? But you don't take a step back to see how far you got to this point of your life.
It's true. It's true. It's true. Yeah, we sometimes, no, I agree. We get caught up with like the negative. Yeah, in a sense, kind of like
Mhm.
the negatives. Like, yeah, like, oh
Yeah.
man, I wish I had done this instead, or should have. But like, hey man, you've made it up to this point. Like, looking back X amount of time ago, you were doing this, and now you're here. And sometimes the same thing with myself. We're a little too hard on ourselves, and I'm like, look back, hey, you know what? Like, I've been, thank God I've been able to make it up to where I'm at now, because other people have it much tougher at the end of the day, and so
Yes.
it's like, for real. Now, let me ask you the following then. Given the fact you mentioned earlier how you weren't, like, I think this is super cool. Like, you weren't fond really much of like school or like studying, because you mentioned that's what you were like missing back in high school, etc. So when you decided to start, let's say, studying nutrition, how were you able to, like, let's say, manage that? Like, were there any like little like mental challenges or things that you had to overcome while like pursuing that education of nutrition? You're like, maybe you're reading a book or taking a course, and you're like, man, like, just like grinding through it. How was that process?
Man, school is tough. So I knew right away I wasn't going to go to an in-person setting. So I decided to do all my schooling online, which is everything has pros and
Nice.
cons, right? But
Yeah.
I would say, I think my personal belief, online school is a lot harder than in-person school because you don't have somebody really teaching you anything. It's just, oh, here's your material, you learn it, figure it out. And if you have questions, yeah, you can ask. But by the time I message you and the teacher responds back, 2 days, your homework is due. I don't have time for this. You just got to figure it out. So the
True.
challenge for me was, like you said, I literally hated school. I did. I feel like school doesn't benefit you. That was my mindset at that time, right? School doesn't benefit you. It doesn't teach me anything. But the fact that I was so intrigued of like trying to help somebody made me want to sit there and learn it. And at that time I didn't even know anything about nutrition. I knew the basic minimum, which is, this is a broccoli, this is a chicken breast, this is rice. Right? That's not even basic. That's just, but that's all I literally knew. And then I used my own culture as an excuse of to why I didn't even eat healthy, right? So people would ask me like, "Oh, why you're not in shape?" Like everybody thinks when you're in the military, you should be in shape, right? Oh, yes and no. The military, you're in charge of your own life as well. So it's like it's just in a little circle, but you're doing the same thing. You're gonna work every day, and it's up to you to make good decisions or bad decisions, right? So I always say that I would call myself bulky fat, if you get what I'm saying. Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
in shape, but I was working out because I joined a crowd of working out, and they told me I work out, but I didn't know how to eat healthy, right? So when I was studying, like I said, the passion of wanting to help my mom just let me dig in deep to read the courses, and I'm blessed and I'm thankful that I'm a good memorizer. Let's just say that, because I'm not one of those who can just sit here and take notes and you know read over and over and things, because I'm gonna get
Yeah.
bored. It's still who I am to this day. I just read, memorize, and go forward with it. But it was challenging from the standpoint I was doing school. I was working a full-time job because I was the one taking care of all the bills at that time. And it was challenging. So I worked during the day and I did my studies at nighttime. And that was just an on day, everyday cycle for 4 years.
I was gonna ask that, like, how long did it take you? Wow. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice. That's a grind right there for sure. For sure.
Right, yeah. I worked in the post office. So we did 12-hour shifts, 6 days a week, and then I was doing school. And then, of course, like any normal human, right, you would say, if I'm studying nutrition, it means I gotta get in shape myself, right? That's how I
Yeah.
just thought. So I was trying to do working out, getting myself in shape, school, and work, and take care of my mom, at least health wise.
So in a sense, I could say, at least from what you're telling me, like the fact that you were like in a sense doing it for your mom, that really what helped you keep going. Because I feel like if it was just like a, let's say and you tell me if you think maybe it was more of a personal interest, like it's something just interested you, you think you would have been able to like push through, or the fact that you're like, hey, you know what, this is also for my mom. You like gotta like you know do it this for her, and that would help you keep going. That's what like that's what it sounded to me as you were explaining to your story. So correct me if I'm wrong there.
No, you're right. I don't think if any of that happened, I don't even think I would have went back to school. Maybe not. Maybe now that I'm in my 30s, maybe I would have went back, like seeing that I don't got nothing. I probably would have been doing nothing with my life, right? Or something, whatever. But yes, definitely that moment, made me go to school, and it was what was pushing me through, because I couldn't live with the fact at that time, like, losing her, which that's how I felt. I still feel to this day, which we'll get that down the line, but I still feel like I'm a loser. And at that point, I just couldn't deal with that bearing of knowing that I lost her and I could have done something.
See that, yeah, no, that drive that you can say, like, I know there's like, for example, me, I'm a big fan of Gary V, and one of the things I know he talks a lot about is like, hey, the fact of no regrets. And so like at
Mm.
least you could say like, hey, you did something there on that regards. 100%. I love that. I love that. Now let me actually focus now on your, let's say, now that you're helping within Latinos and so forth. So talk to me about that. You built a brand also about helping Latinos to stay healthy, like you said, without sacrificing their culture. What would you say are some of the very common misconceptions that you see as Latinos, Hispanics, that they tend to have, that you try to break those misconceptions when you're working with your clients and such?
So I dug more into the brand of Hispanics because I think, if I'm being honest, I put myself away too. Like I went away from my own culture when I started my health fitness. Not that I wouldn't be proud to say I was Hispanic, but it was more just like I forgot. I just went with the normal thing. Oh, give up everything kind of thing. I was the person who just ate rice, chicken, and broccoli for like 3 years straight. I'm not even gonna lie. That was a meal every day. I can tell you my first meal plan that I ate for 4 years to a T. Like breakfast, snack, lunch, dinner to a T to this day, by grams, calories, everything, right? So, and then I was always afraid to dig into the Hispanic culture, just because I'm like, yes, I speak Spanish, but it's like if I was speaking Spanish to you, I wasn't speaking it to a culture, a world, right, to an audience. Because I know my Spanish ain't good when it comes to medical terms, things like that, those big words,
I know what
right?
you mean.
So
Yeah,
I was always afraid, and everybody was telling me like, "Oh, not that I'm not being authentic, but they're like that's who you are. It's a part of you. So you gotta bring it out." I'm telling you, it probably took 4 years to finally accept like this is the route to go into. I'm honest, like it's just I was like, I'm not gonna speak, and I would hear from everybody, even where I work at, they'd be like, "Oh, why don't you do your post and talk a little bit Spanish?" And I'm like, "No, sure," or you just go, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, whatever," kind of thing. But the biggest misconception is, and I think this goes for all fitness, is oh that you have to give up food you love, which is incorrect. I believe that fitness is like anything in life. There's levels to this, right? We're trying to be overall healthy. You don't have to give everything up, right? When you're just trying to be overall healthy. Now, when you have an image and you want to do some type of competition, then of course restriction comes a little bit more there. But that's what I mean when there's levels to this. So the misconception of giving up your food, whether it's your empanadas for us, pastelillos, right? Giving up your rice, which is one of the biggest things you hear, right? Oh, you gotta give up rice. You gotta give up. It's you crazy? I eat rice every day.
facts, facts.
It's knowing how to portion, knowing how to utilizing these things, right? Now, it's different when you have health issues, and like I said, for us Hispanics, it's a big thing of diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, right? And it's because we're not being taught this. I think just not in the Latino community, but in America in general, nobody talks about anything really about nutrition unless you're really into it. Nobody teaches you, oh, you should have a better meal of higher protein, less carbs, because what's killing us is, these carbohydrates, these high processed foods, right? Frying your foods, right? So what I did when I started this was, hey, have you ever heard of like air frying your totones? You still have the same thing. You're just taking all the oil out of it, right? Or portion your rice. You don't have to eat the 3 cucharas that your grandmother gives you because I know she does to me, right? Cut that in half. So that's when I started teaching, like, oh, you don't have to give this up. You can still eat your favorite food, but just portioning, balancing it out, understanding when is the right time to have them, right? And that's what led into this thing of digging deep, and I truly enjoyed because it helped me discover and be very creative with my own meals to show others like, hey, I'm still enjoying my life, still enjoying my own culture. I'm not giving it up. I'm not losing my identity. Because all you want to do, whether I've studied nutrition and they say it's diet, I don't like using the word diet because when you say diet to anybody, they think it's a temporary thing. This is a lifestyle. You can't just, all of a sudden say, I'm gonna do this and then, oh, I got my results. I'm gonna go back to the way I was before, right? That's not just how it works. So I tend to stay off the diet. So I really, in order for somebody to live a good lifestyle, you want to enjoy what you're doing. Because if you're not enjoying it, we're all gonna give up. It's just a human nature in us when we're not enjoying this process. So, like I said, when you're trying to start your fitness journey, guys, don't listen to the myth that you have to cut everything out. It's just really portion balancing out. And we'll get more into that as the podcast go in. But that's what biggest misconception is as us Hispanic is that we have to give up our culture, which is difficult to do.
No, I agree with you for sure. Like for example, my family, they're from Nicaragua. I was born here in the States, but my parents are from Nicaragua, and for us, same thing. There's a lot of like really good foods. Like let's say typical foods for us is like if you go to those like fritangas, like which are like local places there in
Yeah.
Nicaragua where they sell like different foods. Of course you have your carne asada, you have let's say your gallo pinto. We call gallo pinto. I think Puerto Ricans they call it differently, but it's basically rice and beans mixed together. We call it
Oh,
gallo
okay.
pinto the way we season it. I know like Dominicans call it something else. I think Puerto
Yeah.
Ricans also call it something else. I always forget the terms. I always get them mixed up. But then we have like our queso frito. Like the fried cheese. For us Nicaraguans, there's a lot of fried stuff too. So like just like you were saying, like eating in moderation because you have like fried cheese. You have the plantains, which are also like fried, or maduros, which are also fried, or you have like different things. We like a lot of like tortillas or cuajada, which is another type of cheese or this and that. So if you're not careful, you can like have a lot of like different like oily foods or this and that. But like you were
Yes.
saying, hey, maybe do the tostones, put them in like an air fryer. Or let's say if you are eating fried cheese, let's say sometimes what I'll do, I'll get a napkin and kind of like to take out
Yeah.
as much oil as I can out of it, so it's like less oily. Little things like that, where like you said, you can still enjoy your foods, because I'm not stopping to stop eating my Nicaraguan food. I mean, I love it, like it's part of me. So just like you were saying, like eating it in more in moderation and just being more conscious of it. Like, let's say if you already ate let's say a fried cheese earlier today for like a lunch, hey, maybe don't eat it again, maybe for dinner, or like maybe a smaller
Mhm.
piece than eating a whole chunk or something like that, and just being like balancing it out. So I love how you said that, because for sure, one thing from us, I would say our foods, are definitely high in proteins, because there's a lot of like different types of meats and everything that we eat. Just that we would have to be careful on, like, sometimes maybe a little bit of the oily side, or the kind of the fat side, because there's a lot of good things that are also fried too as
Yes, yeah.
well. you know,
Uh, we can
for
go down the
sure.
list. Everybody be hungry after this one.
Right, right. Definitely. Now, let me ask you the following then as well. So, as you mentioned, like that's kind of like the most common misconception, that hey, you have to like stop eating your foods, but like no, it's like eating in moderation, as you were saying. What would be there for building on top of that? What would you say then, as you worked with your clients, some of the most, let's say, if it could be called, like, let's say, underrated habits or mindsets that can shift people to like adopt and start living a more healthier life today, if that makes sense? Like, okay, we know the misconception, as you were saying, is like they have to let go of their food, so then that's not true. So what would you say are some like little day-to-day habits or little mindset shifts that they could like start implementing, where it can lead them to start living that more healthier lifestyle, where they're not giving up on their foods and stuff like that?
All right. That's actually a very good question because by the way, I still struggle with my mom with her nutrition, so it gives me daily experiences. So I'm pretty sure you experience your family members never listen to you. It's just the way
Yeah,
it is. But then some other stranger would tell them exactly what I said, and she'll come and be like, "Oh,
that's
look,
so
this is
funny.
what they said." And I'm like, "I've been telling you this for years, right?" So question always makes me laugh because I go through it daily, still fighting with my mom to try to control her eating habits, right? So I use her actually as a very, I don't want to say guinea pig is a bad word, but it is because it's just a daily battle of, if I can't get her to get through, how can I get the others to get through? Because it gives you the experience of, I have it in person every day, right?
Right.
So I use her like, she's like, I just can't give up. It's hard, right? It's hard. But anything that's, I say, in life, anything that's worth having is always going to be hard. And we're not even now talking about health, fitness. We're just talking life in general, right?
Right.
So first mindset is to accept that things that you truly want and things that you truly want to accomplish, it's not an easy task. You know, everything starts up here before you can do anything else, right? That's the biggest obstacle we all face. But the biggest thing for me when I tell them, like, oh, let's make this into the daily habits, it's I consider it like a baby. I try to, we're going to, a baby doesn't come out the womb and knows how to run, right? It takes a few months, learns how to eat, learns how to crawl, learns how to walk. So let's take baby steps. Not many people in this world can do a 360 turn like this. Don't
Right.
get me wrong. There's people who can do it that wake up tomorrow and be like, I'm changing everything, and they can do it. But not most of us ain't like that. It takes daily work at it, right?
Right.
So it's still eating your, like you said, your queso frito, but be mindful of how much oil you put, right? Oil is one of our, I would say, hidden calories, just like sauces are, because your
Yep.
oil, if you ever read the nutrition label, which I believe nobody who studies nutrition really reads the nutrition label, who would, right? But 1 tablespoon of, even olive oil, which is what we all hear is a good oil, you already have like, 16 grams of fat. Now add another tablespoon. We're frying with so much, you're easily at like 50, 60 grams of fat without even getting to the food portion, right?
Yeah.
Excuse me. So when I get these habits, I'm like, hey, be very mindful of these little things that are adding up, which is your oil. You can still use your oil, just be mindful of it, measure it. And I know when people hear measuring, they're like, oh, it's so much work. Doesn't mean you have to measure forever, right? you're trying to learn it at first. So of course, when you're learning something, measuring it, it's a perfect technique. I love it. I still measure stuff to this day, but it's just a part of me now, right? So doing that, or even switching like off from the oil to the spray, right? That's a little technique right there alone. Now you can't deep fry your food, but that's a technique to, cook your meat, your steak. You don't have to use all this oil. Another thing is, like I said, the air fryer is probably one of the greatest gifts ever.
Yeah,
You
facts.
can make the same seasonings, because I don't ever tell people to change their seasoning. I mean, that's what makes our culture great, that we season
Yeah.
our food to death, right? Because if you're doing everything else right, like, drinking water, eating healthy portion, seasoning is not going to kill you guys. Trust me, seasoning is not going to kill you. I promise. Promise. You can still season it and you use the air fry. So little steps like that, walking after you eat, controlling your portion. So, so like I said earlier, if you used to eating 3 cups of rice, how about you go down to half a cup, right? Be mindful of that. Your plate should look the reverse way, more protein, your veggies, right? And a moderate carb. You're still enjoying the same plate. I can tell you, like you said, rice, beans. I can sit a rice, beans, chicken, right? And still have the same plate. I'm just flipping it to the other side, a higher protein portion and a little bit more moderate carb. So when I get them to transition, it's little baby steps like that. Be mindful of your oil. Oh, let's go for a walk. We're not even getting into the walk, the workout part yet. Hey, just walk after your meal, 15, 30 minutes. And then I use it even good. Like, you have a dog, walk your dog.
Yep.
Walk your
Yep.
dog. That's a perfect excuse to get a walk for yourself. You walk your dog 3 times a day. You're doing something. You're being active. You're just not sitting there after these meals. So it's shifting that mindset of like, yes, enjoy it, but in a very moderation way. And then you're not giving up who you are. Nobody likes to give up who they are.
Yep. No, facts. I love that. Yeah, and exactly. And I like how you said in baby steps, exactly, because that's how you like, one step at a time, you start getting used to it, and then you start building a more sustainable, let's say, long-term habit where again, you're able to maintain it versus, like you said, if you do like a quick shift, it's like that's too quick of a change, and then it's gonna feel more of a drag than like, oh wow, I'm turning my life around, and then it's a week passes, and you're back to your old self in a sense and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Yep.
Too
Now,
restrictive. You're going to give up. I promise.
yep. No, it's so true. It's so true. Now, let me ask you the following here too. I wanted to get like your little definition, with, let's say, from your life journey back, as we started earlier in the podcast, to now helping others within their own, let's say, like nutrition and so forth. If, let's say, there's someone out here listening to this podcast, and let's say they maybe feel stuck in some kind of cycle of bad decisions, like maybe you once were in the past and so forth, what advice would you give to those people that could possibly be listening to this podcast on that regards?
Like I said, looking back, wow. My biggest advice is literally, guys, tomorrow's a new page. It helps me. Every day is a new page in your book, right? So the decision you make today, you can change tomorrow and start a whole new chapter in your life. Don't always look at it as just like, oh, this is it's gonna be so hard. Always make decision to better yourself, right? And what you said earlier is perfect. Sometimes it's not up to you, it's the situation. You have to remove yourself from that situation. Really sit down, look at yourself in the mirror, and ask yourself, what do you want from yourself first, right? Because you self-care comes, you got to put yourself first. As mean as it sounds, you got to get family, mom, wife, whatever. You can't take care of anybody else if you don't take care of yourself, right? So that new page has helped me. I was a very negative person, and going through mental development is what helped me. And knowing that every day is a new page, and that goes live, anything, right? Well, sometimes we don't need perfect, right? We're in this fitness industry. We don't need perfect every day. Guess what? I don't feel guilty. The next day, it's a new page. Let's get back right on the right path, right? So I take that very deeply. It's a new page. It's gonna be hard. It's gonna be challenging, right? Just never give up. The quote of, you know, that a person who never gives up eventually makes it, it's 100% truth, right? It's hard. You're probably gonna fail 100,000 times. I failed 1,000 times, or probably more than that. I can't even count. And I think about quitting, but I never do. Just give it one more try and live with that one more try. And eventually that one more try turns into a home run, a touchdown. And you're gonna look back the same way we both do and be like, wow, 10
Yep.
years ago I wouldn't even sit here, doing a podcast talking about, life changing, nutrition, anything like that. So don't give up on yourself. Every day's a new page and you can start over any day. It's your life. You're in control.
I love it. No, beautiful. Well said, Anthony. I have nothing else to add to that. It was so beautiful. And I mean, it's so true because, you're in control. I love how you honestly said that part where it was, hey, if you don't take care of yourself, how can you take of other people? And it's so true because I was listening to a podcast myself from Stephen Bartett from the Diary of a CEO that he like interviews multiple, and he has his own book. And I was listening to the audiobook, and one of the chapters in the audiobook, how he calls it the first foundation, where he's like, hey, always prioritize your first foundation. What he means by that is like, hey, you could have luxuries, you could have businesses, you could have family, you could have whatever. But if your first foundation, which is your health, deteriorates, like nothing else matters. Like, what does it matter if you're like, let's say, the richest man in the world, or what does it matter if you have X amount of vehicles or X amount of businesses, or what does it matter if like you're, let's say, the best bodybuilder, or the best, let's say, Latino cook, to tying it back to our whatever. What does it all matter if, let's say, your health deteriorates and your health is wasting away, right? Nothing else matters. And so I really love how you said like, hey, take care of yourself first, because ultimately, if you're not taking care of yourself first, then nothing else adds up. I always like to say God, Jim, grind. Let's say God first. But like a
Mm-hmm.
way that, in my opinion, where you
Right.
could prioritize putting God first is by taking care of the body that He gave you. Because at the end of the day, you only have one body, you only have one life. And so make sure you take care of it as best as you can. And so I love how you said that, Anthony. So true. And then one final piece of, let's say, as we wrap up this podcast, I just want to leave the audience with one final thing, specifically to the Latino Hispanic community. What's one message that you would want every Latino, young Latino, adult Latino, etc., any Latino listening to this podcast to walk away with?
Um, don't give up your culture, man. Your culture is who we are, number one. I think every race, has their culture, but I truly believe the Latino culture, it's who we are. We wear it with pride. I see where it's Nicaragua, where it's Dominican. Like it's funny, but when you call Dominican Puerto Rican, vice versa, it's like a crime. That's how pride we are in our
Yep,
culture,
yep.
right? So don't give up your culture to accomplish whatever you're trying to accomplish. You can still show your story, show your culture, and still accomplish everything you want to accomplish. And when it comes to losing weight, trust me, it's not as hard as social has made it seem, right? That'd be a whole nother conversation, science wise, right? But it's truly not that hard. It's made it seem hard. So it's leave with this. Portion your control. Watch your those little hidden things like your mayo ketchup for us who love mayo ketchups, right? Watch your oil and don't give up culture. Be proud, be happy with it, and still you can enjoy your life while achieving the results you want to achieve.
Beautiful. And you guys heard that here first on the G3X podcast. Anthony, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Loved having you on
Thank
it.
you, sir.
Honestly, you talked amazing stuff. Now, if the audience wanted to follow you, what social media platforms are you on? I'll always be including that in the description here on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening to this podcast. So, what platforms are you on? Where could they follow you?
So on IG, so Instagram, on TikTok, it's the same username, Latino Fit and. So follow it. My name's Anthony and Fit Latino all together. There you go. That's how you know. So it's easy to find Latino Fit and then on Facebook it's just Anthony Ramos. You'll find, the killer and fitness because that's what it's under. But those are the three platforms I'm mostly on. Um, IG and TikTok, the biggest ones, where I show the recipes. I show you how to not give up your culture while still achieving your goals. So go check it out. You know, I'm always open for questions. You don't ever have to be like, oh, this guy gonna charge me for nothing. I'm here to help. First and foremost is help. I don't think about anything else but helping you achieve whatever you're going through.
Beautiful. So you guys heard it. Give him a follow again. It'll be all in the description below. So check it out. And Anthony, again, thank you so much for being on the podcast. And as the rest of you guys listening to this, hope you guys enjoyed it. And as always, until the next time, as we like to say here at G3X, God Gym Grind, and wish everyone the best. Have a good one.
Good one, guys.